middle school for. Oh. All right. Well, welcome everybody to the March meeting of the Arts, Park, and Recreation Advisory Committee. It is 5:36 on March 17th, so it's called to order. Wanted to see, does anybody have anything to add to the agenda that's not on there? Okay. We're not able to do the approval of the February minutes. I've not been able to put those together, but I think with Facebook we'll be able to make that work a lot better. So I'll be able to email that to everybody. So we'll do a approval through email. So I want to start with old business, so just continuation. We have 7 applicants for the committee right now. So I sent them out. Kind of wanted to have a discussion, see what everybody thought about next steps. Didn't want to talk too much about the actual applicants, but just if there are any follow-up questions. I don't know if you got a chance to look through all of them, but if we identified some people we did want to invite to to the board, maybe if there's any follow-up questions. And I think one of the questions I thought of is, are you available on the third Thursday of every month? It's kind of an important question. It's written on there, but some people don't necessarily see that. So I didn't know if there's other questions maybe people wanted to do for applicants we really liked.
So 3 positions available, right?
Right now, yeah.
Do we want to consider, screening the applicants, maybe doing a ranking? And if the top 3, we want to ask additional questions or something like that? We can do it a different way. It could be the top 5.
I like that idea. Yeah, I think, some diversity would be nice. We do have 4 males right now, so I just want to call attention to that, so it'd be nice. We did have a number of female identifying people apply, but yeah, maybe ranking top 5, and then maybe we can send them out. I don't know, does anybody else want to sit? I know, Travis, you agreed to sit on the nominating committee. I don't know if anybody else wanted to sit in on those discussions, and thought maybe that committee could meet and then kind of work through this and send some recommendations, but if anybody has other ideas. So.
I think your point about availability and commitment is crucial.
Okay.
That's very crucial.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. We need people here. We've been moving forward. So, any other discussion? Anything? Ideas or? And I figured, we didn't put a deadline for an application, so, I'd like to have this finalized to the mayor, before the next meeting. So, the idea is, the mayor's still approving all these and everything like that. So we can work through that, give enough time to basically be able to look at the members and give input, So then if we can get that all finished, have that person actually, those 3 people, at this next meeting, so. Any other thoughts about that discussion?
So shoot for the April meeting, have that.
Yeah, the next April meeting, you have the discussion between the meetings, and if anybody wants to join Travis and I on that, we can work on that, and then if anybody else, if anybody's watching this on Facebook Live and you want to apply, there's still time. So the link's on the city website. You can email me at brewweekbrandon@gmail.com and I can send it to you. So. Okay. New business. So I put this on here. I had a discussion with Catherine Ann a little bit about this, timing, discussion, and meetings. So I feel like I've not been doing a great job of keeping us on task. Our last meeting, we barely got to, the APR staff report. So kind of toying with maybe trying to put like a time limit or something that the group, we can work on so we're like getting through everything. I wanted to see what the group thought about that.
A time limit on what?
Some of the discussion. So like on all of our items. So a lot of times like in the past, and I've been on this board for a while, we'll get bogged down in one topic and we won't get to everything on the agenda. So things will get kicked out, and so I don't know what the time limit would be, but just seeing what the group thought about that idea of like, maybe allowing everybody to be like, hey, do we want to continue discussion? Things as that,
I'll leave that up to you. To say, I think we should wrap this up now.
Yeah. So that's why
we have other things to discuss.
Yeah, I've given everybody the option of like, hey, if we want to keep going, or something like that, because I have my thoughts and trying to make sure I balance that. I want to give it the power, but I just know people thought about that, but also just wanted to bring it to the forefront. So I think like we get in some really good discussions, but then we got about 20 minutes to go through some other things, and they're all important. So just want to kind of bring that up. So
Well, could we consider maybe immediate action items and make them priority, put
Sure.
them at the top of the list? And then you call the shots on that as far as, okay, either we need to make a decision or table it or for another meeting, but those immediate action or early action things where we have to make some decisions, make them a priority.
go. I like that. Yeah, I mean, in the past, I've tried to put it kind of in, I think, like things we need to go first, but, I'd also love just, if, this isn't my agenda, so if anybody has agenda items that they really want, like we need to get on this, yeah, I'd like that idea. So, okay. Any other discussion about that item, or?
Well, I think that's a good idea, for sure.
Okay.
And maybe, go through the list and move on, and then we could always revisit ones that need more discussion.
Okay.
I mean,
I was
it's-
almost thinking like having it on here beforehand so we all know as well. So it's not just like, why did we spend 5 minutes on this, or something like that. But it's like, does this make sense? Because also I think with a lot of the information that we're getting, like sometimes be like, oh, this is gonna be longer. This is gonna there's new stuff is right, and I don't always know that. So I just want to make sure like things can move around. So yeah, okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Tennis and pickleball construction discussion. So, Catherine Ann, if you wanted to start this, or
Sure. So we got to the third reading of the $250,000 ordinance to have new tennis courts and pickleball courts constructed, and that once we got more of the detailed estimate of the original idea of tennis courts and pickleball courts, I know that we had a discussion with city administration about requesting to council that we have a little bit more time to think about what are some ways that we can revise the original plan so that we could stay within a budget. And so that's what we're doing here. Alan helped me explain the process. I think it was put back to committee, and then we have a timeline. So we wanted to make sure that the advisory board, city council said they wanted to make sure the advisory board, which we agree with, has time to review other options, have another discussion, and with the hopes that we can bring it back to council, which would put it back in its first reading. Is that? Yeah, you correct me on the process, please.
Yeah, what we did was we postponed to a specific time. 2 weeks go by, we're supposed to get a report, so we did this at the meeting on the, excuse me, I gotta get the calendar here, get my dates right. Today's the, today's the 17th. We did this at the meeting on the 7th, which is a regular meeting of council. The next regular meeting of council will be the 21st, at which time a report will be given. Or we have the option of giving a report. If we don't, then in 4 more weeks, we have to do something. The thought was to let this body meet, review any changes, modifications, whatever, make any recommendations, or if you come to the conclusion tonight that you need more information and all that, that's part of the report. But this thing does not have to be voted on in 2 weeks, and 4 weeks, and 6 weeks. But the reporting part does. The clerk of council, who sits right here, will inform council that either report was given or was not given. And if you get to the point tonight of being able to share with me, the liaison, some information that I can take back to council, then I will do that on Monday night. And if the information is we need more time, that's what I'll do.
Great, thanks for explaining that. Whenever I was watching it on the 7th, I got lost on what exactly was happening because it was weird.
You can postpone something. You can lay something on the table. You can postpone it indefinitely. You can postpone definitely, and there's a fourth one which I can't remember. But there are 4 different things in Robert's Rules of Order that one can do.
Yeah, I remember it was an unfamiliar, so definitely unfamiliar to me. So thanks for explaining that. So what we did is we contacted Don here at BDT, who we're working with on this project, and I said, could we explore different options? I provided some ideas to Don so that we could see what different options there could be that could stick within a certain budget or be around or near close to, what can we do that so that we still get courts that are safe and playable as soon as possible, because we know that's very important. And so you all have a copy of the different options. So of course, if you all have other ideas as well, this is a place to discuss those. So I don't know if you want me to turn it over to Don to discuss, or if you want me to discuss, or if you want me to go by each image to try to highlight.
You and I, we met earlier this or last week. Last week, I don't know. Probably I think what you discussed was really helpful to me. So it might be able for the committee to hear some of that, the options and maybe what you see. We can have a discussion from there. So.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things that we have is the asphalt that's in between the community center and the skate park, and it used to be a part of the old runway. And the way it's been explained to me by engineers within the city is that the asphalt in that area is a lot deeper. It hasn't sustained the same amount of issues as the current tennis courts have. So even though it's lower, it is a little bit higher than the current tennis courts. But that space is generally a better space no matter what. So one of the options we were thinking about was, okay, well, is there a way that we can do some extensive repairs to that asphalt? Because there are cracks, so that would need to be repaired. I think in some instances it might be patched, and others it's going to be cut out and re-poured. Forgive me if I'm not using the correct terms on that, to make sure that the surface is repaired, and then put the cushioned surface on top and put courts on there. And so one of the ideas was, okay, well, could we put some pickleball courts there, and could we put the new tennis courts over in the East Dog Park area where the whole facility was kind of proposed initially? What would that look like? Could we put them all on the asphalt that currently exists between the community center and the skate park with some work to repair? So those were the ideas that we explored, and one of the reasons behind kind of also the thinking about reasons why we wanted to adjust for a minute was because we could in the future, if the community wanted, put additional courts in other parks. And so we don't have to have it all centrally located. So maybe with this time, we wouldn't get the 3 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts, but we could get tennis courts and we could get pickleball courts. And then in a year or two, once we've had time to talk to the community and hear from them and see, once we are able to get into our master planning process for the next 5 years, which I would like your assistance with. I have that on the updates. Then we can say, okay, we can start identifying sites in other parks so that the communities, in each kind of the west side, south side, can also have access to a court or two, based on if that is their interest, of course. And then something that's really interesting that kind of came to light as well, and I've read up, I've seen that there are some noise complaints about pickleball, and which is, whenever I saw the first article, it was like several months ago, and I was like, wow, I wonder how many, it seems like that would be a lot of courts to cause that much, but that there are. And then I had a community member email me, I believe she emailed members of council as well, and in favor of tennis courts and pickleball courts, but said, thinking of the location, noise is something that we should consider. And so thinking about the hotel where these courts are going to be close to, having the pickleball courts closer, kind of sandwiched in between the community center and the skate park, might reduce some of those issues with noise, because that's kind of a very vibrant area already. And structurally, the idea is that structure would be able to support some courts. So that's kind of as quick as I can get into it about that. But we're also not, we're not married to one specific option either. But if in the document you have the three different images, so you can kind of see, and then if we have the estimates worked up for what specific pieces go into the cost, and then you'll have a total opinion of cost construction, the total cost kind of at the end of each option, so you can kind of see the differences in cost. And the original estimate was just north of $375,000, I believe, for the 3 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts at the East State Dog Park Solar Array area where we're working on that space.
And these 3 layouts, are these in preference, or are they just 3 layouts? Like, did you have a feeling about one or the other, 2 or 3, or? I know we had a discussion.
I don't
but
think
yeah.
that there was
Okay.
necessarily a preference. It was just, me trying to provide some guidance.
Some different options, okay.
Yeah. I feel like there was something I wanted to add that I forgot already.
And what was the original appropriation?
The
when it
original
went to
request
council?
was for $250,000, and looking at our long-term budget and what we end up using the levy funds for,
Mm-hmm.
that is about as much as we can go with this kind of project, because once we start adding on, I have pool repairs that I'm already doing, so we have these kind of, I don't know what to call them, but surprise, haha, gotcha things, that fortunately we have the levy to use, and it's written in such a way. So I work really closely with our city auditor's office to make sure that we're thinking about where funds need to come from for what. But that specific levy itself, we want to make sure that we have enough money going into 2023 to also be able to do something, and we have to have a little bit of a buffer, because the past few years we've taken money out to pay salary, which is totally fine for the levy, but it's also, that's an unexpected, unplanned for thing that you have to kind of plan for, anticipate.
Okay. Thanks, yeah, I guess, discussion. Appreciate this information, and
So the original set of drawings were 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts,
Thank you for correcting me. Yeah.
and the price was $388. Now, I misspoke when I said original. The original drawing was 3 pickleball courts and 4 tennis courts. And that's what
No.
Excuse me, 3 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. 3 of the big ones, 4 of the little ones, okay? Which we talked about on council. In fact, this very document was shared with Andy Stone, and this is what we were talking about. So when it came back 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts, that was a bit of a surprise. And you may or may not want to get into that. But my question is this. What came back was 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts at $388.
I thought it was $375.
Well, $375, whatever,
Okay.
but in that neighborhood, okay? What I'm looking at here are option A and B, 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts at $100,000 less than that. I don't have that original in front of me. What has been pulled out of that to get to option A and option B?
To move the pickleball courts out to the location they're proposed in option 1 and 2, A and B, we don't have to do excavation, we don't have to do base construction, we don't have to do base asphalt. So all of that sort of hard plane that you're going to put these courts on is not a cost to the project.
Hold on a second. Ryan, could you pull up image 1 so that at least viewers can have it there? Thank you.
So, yeah, that makes sense. What concerns me about that location for those pickleball courts is that any time we get the Hocking River above 21 feet, that area is underwater. Since 1990, that has happened 21 times. That's a problem. As a council person, potentially voting on this in the use of the city's funds and the citizens' funds, I would have I'm not saying I couldn't, but I would have a difficult time rationalizing putting this kind of money into anything in a location that's been underwater 21 times since 1990.
The advantage of the site, of the location we're proposing, is the airport that Catherine Ann had brought up. That the base, it's a concrete base, and we're basically at the basketball courts at the end of that airport. Everything that used to extend downriver has essentially gone. The existing tennis courts missed that base, so they're a little bit too far to the south. So when it floods, the subgrade there gets wet and it causes the entire system to fail. The beauty of where this is at is that you've got 2 feet of concrete below this, and then you're putting it on top, so it can flood 100 times. And it's not going to degrade the base of this construction. Now, you won't be able to use it, absolutely, and it'll get muddy, and there's certainly downsides to it. But it won't be like the existing tennis courts. You won't have the same kind of cracking issues, you won't have the subgrade washout, all the issues that you're having over there right now. So it is, it's fortuitous, if we look at it that way.
I will say, and this is something, of course, that is important with master planning. This is one of the reasons why we need to hear from the community, is that the advantage of the asphalt area that already exists, it's not new construction, is that when the community says, hey, we need pickleball courts over in West Side, we need it over in South Side, we need it somewhere else that I'm not thinking of, then the new construction, we can build to the community need, and then either keep those pickleball courts, or maybe they can get repurposed into something else. It's one of those where it's kind of a flex space, if you will. I don't have any intention of saying we're not going to do that there anymore, if that's something that we all kind of come to a consensus on. But I think that's one of those where it gives room for meeting a demand, as soon as we can. It is important to have public resources available, and these courts there definitely would be a very good opportunity for our community. But then giving us more time so that we don't end up having the same tennis courts and waiting for however long to make a decision, because those tennis courts aren't getting any better and they're getting worse, the existing ones.
In your drawing, where it says hockey enclosure, you said that was pretty much a keeper for children's programming, yada, yada, yada. So those pickleball courts to me appear as if they're outside the hockey rink and starting into the grass where there is no asphalt. Is that correct? Or are you going to take away the area that you said was very valuable and we don't want to get rid of that?
In the first image and is it the second image as well? In 1 and 2, we aren't getting rid of the hockey rink. We can make the size a little bit smaller, and that would still leave opportunities for people who are coming. And people do occasionally set up. I saw someone in there the other day, and they had cones, and they were practicing some skate work. People use it as an off-leash area for their dog. Please don't do that. My kid fell and pooped there the other day, so just community members. It's not a dog park. And we do use it for our childcare programming to help keep them contained, playing outside from other folks. I was able to have a conversation with Erin Helms, our program operations manager, and because on option 3, the image 3, we would be eliminating that space for that. And I spoke with Erin about it for a good bit, because, you know, she's the one who's overseeing this. And we definitely came up with a good solution for using that green space, which honestly, when the kids fall and they're playing on the asphalt, they get injured and it hurts. So the green space that's kind of if you're looking at the picture to the right, so it's still directly behind the community center, in between the existing tennis courts and the skate park, that we could put a little enclosure there, and have a space for our kids so that we can still have our programming.
So I guess my question is, in all three options, it's still on the concrete runway pad?
Yes, it's always fit within that larger sort of hammer end of the.
Without
of the pad.
encroaching onto the basketball area? That all
Correct.
goes on that one hockey rink pad?
Well, the hockey rink takes sort of middle section, but there's also an end section that doesn't get.
There's a
used very
little
much.
bit of end section and a little bit of side section. If that hockey rink wasn't there, the way I measured it, you couldn't get more than 2 pickleball courts in there. How are you going to get 2 tennis courts and 3 pickleball courts in an area that can barely fit 2 pickleball courts without going into the grass and having to start from the ground up?
I would have to see your measurements. Based upon what we're using, which is a scaled civil drawing prepared by a survey engineer, it fits.
Do you know how long a pickleball court is?
I have them drawn here. Yes.
How long is one?
Off the top of my head, I didn't draw it, so.
Oh, okay. Brandon, I would suggest, I mean, this discussion could take the rest of the evening. So
Yeah.
I would like to discuss this particular subject at a later time and go through the rest that you have on your agenda. We could devote an entire meeting to this. And from what I understand, that there's no way that this can be done in 2022. So we have until next year to,
How do you,
To beat this dead dog.
where are you coming up with that number?
from construction people that build these for a living, that says, you know, it's going to be very hard to find a company that's not already booked to be able to put in these courts this year.
Well, it's a good reminder that whenever it has to go through council, it takes weeks and weeks. So, you know, could be 2 months based on how everything meets. There's a break in the summer. So I think it's really important to remember and acknowledge that.
Well, all the more
whenever we're
reason to
talking about
say,
appropriations.
let's look forward to having this happen in 2023. There's no sense in, we've got to have this done tonight. Community wants it, let's get it done. It's not going to happen in my mind in 2022, so we can go on with other things.
So, I guess, Greg, what are you proposing? You want to have another meeting later? Is that your
Well,
thing?
like you said, to
Yeah, yeah.
discuss one, you've got several
Yeah.
other things to discuss, and I think that this is not the time to,
Yeah, and this is a very big decision. I mean,
it's a very big
that's why I put
decision.
it as high as I could on the agenda, because I know there's a lot of moving pieces. And I guess, so you're saying this would be, in your mind, you think this would be constructed next year? Is that what you're saying?
Well, if
Assuming, you know, like
if it goes out to bid and companies are going to say, oh, we can't do it in 2022, we're booked. I mean, I called one place and they were already putting up windscreens on courts. So, and I said, is there any chance that if you got into a contract, you could do it this year? And it's like, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You know, it's too late to get on our list, so.
So then to play devil's advocate, though, if we don't get on a list, what happens whenever they're already booked up in 2023? So then we're looking at 2024.
Well, once the
So
budget's
that's
approved
just
for
something
the
that
X
you need
amount of
to
courts that
consider.
we would go into discussion about, then you would make a contract with those folks and they'd put you on the list. I mean, we've got a year and a half now.
And then I had a question about, so that like the 1 to 2, were there, and I know this is like very conjecture, but like, what are some locations we were thinking of, you know, because I've received a few emails from people about pickleball, you know, telling me it's the fastest growing sport. You know, were there locations that you had in mind of like where other courts would be, or like, you know, I just always wondered what you had in mind with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at our different park spaces to see, and at the Richland Avenue Park, for instance, there's a big flat space. I don't know what kinds of courts could fit on there, and if it could sustain that, because you would need probably a little bit of extra parking as well. But that could be a site that we could explore. Highland Park has a flat space, and I know that would be obviously a site that we could explore, all of it with community input. And then West State Street Park, there's definitely been calls for some sort of sports court down there, from what I have heard in the past, and so that could be a good space. Greg had a good idea the other day whenever we spoke about, a multi-use court. You could have basketball goals on there and then figure out some way of storing some nets down there so people could have pickup games. So I think those are some of just the options off the top of my head of thinking about our different spaces that we have,
Okay.
available to us that seem like they aren't necessarily in right next to the river.
No, I mean, I love the
Yeah.
idea. I just wondered if there was anything, because I think it does make sense to see, what our needs are, get something in there, because, they're not playable. Like we've all discussed this, like needs to be repaired in some way, and, but then see what they need in 2-3 years, how big it is, and, because I personally, I like the idea of having more things in neighborhood versus a central spot. As a kid who grew up on the south side, like I wasn't allowed to ride my bike over the community center, so having something over in Richland sounds exciting, so, okay.
Just to piggyback, I don't think it's a good idea to have them all centrally located. I think about accessibility, and also just distributing, with its rising interest and popularity, distributing the crowds so that people are not waiting in one location to access those courts. So I'm glad that that's in your thought process now.
So all of those options means more courts. And more courts mean more money. So I have 3 questions. I'll do the money one first. In terms of the priorities, how much money do we have this year, next year, 2024, 2025, that we're willing to devote to pickleball tennis courts?
Well, this year we're able to devote $250,000 to it, which is one of the reasons why we put it forward.
We're able to, or we're willing to?
We're able to.
Those are very different.
We're able to and willing to.
Okay, because those are very different. All right, the other 2 questions go back to these drawings, A and B, 1 and 2, whichever you want to call them. When Third Son gave us these drawings back, the final drawings in May of 2021, May the 12th to be exact, they had the array, the solar arrays laid out. And the solar arrays would then also accommodate the pickleball and tennis courts as well as the dog park. Both A and B, drawing A and B, cut into where those arrays are. Have you spoken with the folks at Third Son Solar as to their ability to reconfigure the placement of those arrays?
I have.
And they're good with that?
We've been working with them directly as we go through various options, and they've seen these options. Their goal, their need is for more area because of the issues in front of the library.
Right.
And their suggestion was option 2, which is where the tennis courts are pushed further to the north of the area, up closer to the hotel. And so that they could fill in down around it. That was their sort of ideal. If you're going to put a tennis court over here, that's where we would rather have it. So that's what number 2 indicates. Number 3 obviously gives them the entire site and gives them the best of both worlds.
Yeah. So your point about number 2 is my last question. We talked about noise earlier. You put those tennis courts right there. You just rendered those hotel rooms on that side of the hotel undesirable. I travel a lot, and I don't want to be on the side of a hotel next to a highway. In fact, if you talk to hotel people, they will tell you if they have a hotel and they have 2 sides. A perfect example is the Embassy Suites on 77 going up towards Canton. They rent all the rooms on the non-77 side of the highway first before they rent the rooms on the 77 side, simply because of noise. You put those tennis courts right up there, Nobody wants those rooms, and that's not being a good neighbor to a local business.
But what's also really cool is that the Hampton Inn, is it Hampton or Holiday Inn?
Holiday Inn.
Holiday Inn
Express.
can say, hey, we've got public accessible tennis courts right in our backyard.
Yeah, well, that doesn't offset sleeping at night.
Yeah, a little further down.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. But it's a concern. It is a concern.
we ended up going that direction and pushing it up toward those buildings is that it decreases the length of run for electric, it decreases the length of run for sidewalk, the same thing for plumbing, if we're gonna put a water fountain out there. You know, so all of those infrastructure costs are less, the closer we can get to the two buildings that are up there. So, you know, from our perspective, it made sense.
Yeah, I asked
I'm
them
sure
to
Mike Knoll
focus on
would
kind of
have a
cutting
different
costs.
opinion,
So.
but he always will.
Yeah. And IHG.
But a
members.
fair point of why also perhaps pickleball courts there are definitely not the best option.
Would there be set hours of use?
That we're gonna have lights. I've very strongly feel that it's necessary to have lights on the courts, which is another reason why the asphalt area, it already has lights, which is nice. Now there may be a chance that we need to improve those lights, and so Don worked that in just to make sure that it is lighted enough. And our current lights turn off at 11, so that would be what we would go with.
And that would be close to noise
Noise
ordinance as well,
ordinance.
so.
Yeah.
So I mean, that would help. I mean, having a discussion with Holiday Inn would be good. I guess, so, it was Don, right?
Yes, sir.
So you said it was cheaper if we were closer to the Holiday Inn as far as infrastructure costs?
If we're closer to the two small buildings, the restroom and the other building that's there, because that's where we're pulling power.
Yeah, power and
water and everything else from. So that's our utility source. So it allows us to just shorten those runs.
And we're talking about number 2, right? Or option 2, right? That's
Yeah.
the one, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that one comes in at 2, I guess I'm just wondering why that's higher, the cost, or maybe I'm reading this wrong. That was
Oh,
like
yeah.
$294?
Yeah,
Is there like something else, different cost or something like that, or?
there might be. It's
Okay.
the difference between the two is very.
And I've just got this today, so I'm not sure. I just was, okay.
I know in some of the stuff I don't know exactly what it means.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, I mean, what's the group want to do with discussion? I mean, this is a huge undertaking, and I want to make sure we do it right, you know, so, yeah, I've received a number of emails about, pickleball, you know, and it seems like it's growing, so I want to make sure we do right by Athens, so, I mean, I guess, what's your opinion, Catherine, for moving forward and stuff like that, so?
Well, my opinion is that we, you know, ideally, we could say, all right, let's try to get within or close to that range, and so let's go ahead of $250,000. If we come in below, great. If we have to go a little bit north, we have not very much wiggle room.
Yeah,
And then we could go ahead and get that going back through council, because, you know, I think that we're coming up to, is it recess? Is that what we call it? Break? What is
We got
it?
a lot of time.
Well, are we starting back at the first reading
No.
though when it comes back? Only if we change it?
If we
Only if
amend
we
it, it
adjust
goes
the.
back to first
Okay,
reading,
okay,
yeah.
thank you.
so,
But I'm over here just wanting to get some new courts.
gotcha, yeah, sure.
But you know, if we want to give some more time, if you all want to go out into the community and ask for input of where these should go, if there's a different location that we should even be looking at right now. I will say that at this site, since we do want electricity, we do want lights, we already have that here. So some sites, it's not going to be as easy, depending on the location. So it might be more cost adding in those additional infrastructure support needs. But, you know, I'm in favor of any of these options sitting in front of us right now.
Okay.
Ideally, not the one closest to the Hampton Inn. Holiday
Holiday
Inn.
Inn.
I'm so sorry.
Hotel.
Hotel, not the 294, because those are good
Used to be the
points.
County engineer.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I mean, I just, you know, it's good to know different options.
So Brandon,
Yeah.
Picking up on what Greg said, would you, as chair of this committee, would you consider doing a special session devoted to
Just
one
like a
topic?
community thing or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. You know, it need to be soon, I guess. You know, I'm hearing push and pull. You know, I personally don't know much about pickleball, but I understand courts and fields. And so I just want to make sure we're not building something that doesn't fit a need, you know, like, you know, we all want what we want. So I guess would that be like a community input? Is that what you're thinking? Or just us getting together again with Catherine Ann and maybe put on if you want to get together and just hashing it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a way to poll the community without, I mean, just electronically?
I mean,
I'm not going. I'm not going house to house.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now. So, I mean,
Girl Scout cookie time.
you know, they got the advantage over me right now.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. There is, but I just wonder how fruitful it's going to be. I mean,
Yeah.
this is, you know, out there in Facebook land, whoever's listening, thank you for, you know, how many people outside of this space know about this, you know, and I think that's really important, you know, when getting feedback. So,
Well, I got 4 emails in the last 18 hours.
yeah,
so
and
it's getting out
yeah,
there.
There is, but, you know, in the city of Athens, I do wonder, you know, so I just want to make sure. So you didn't have a preference between any of these, Catherine?
I mean, yes, I do.
Oh, you do?
And
Okay.
I would go, I mean, if I really would
it's-
go
yeah.
with, just from my perspective, the third option.
So I guess I have a question about that one, because what I heard about the moving the hockey enclosure to the grass, I mean, what happens when it rains? Where do those kids go during that space? Because that's the first thing I thought of. I'm thinking of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, when it rains at recess at Morrison and I can't go out, you know, play in the grass, so.
Yeah, typically whenever whenever it's actively raining, then we take over a part of the gym space in the community center. But then of course sometimes, yeah, for days it's wet and mucky, and so that would impact that. Of course, you know, there is the plan that we don't have in place yet, but we have to repurpose those tennis courts, those existing ones, you know. And so what do those become? And could that become? Who knows what that could become? But there are a lot of creative ways that communities are repurposing old tennis courts. Obviously, it would need a lot of work done if it was going to be a hard surface because they're in such disrepair. They would, but that's something that is also. But I mean, I think from the idea of can we get playable courts for people, and then can we really work on with this master plan that we need to do what future courts could look like. But that's, you know, that's my perspective. I'm trying to weigh the variety of the community needs. I'm trying to consider the different projects, some of them maintenance, but like really big dollar maintenance, some of them new things that we still need that are coming in the future that are we need right now, but they're coming in the future. And so that's from my trying to balance competing draws on our budget and trying to make sure that we are meeting as many needs as we can possibly meet. Because that's my job is to serve the community. And there's a lot of different people in the community. So how do we get the most bang for our buck how do we serve the community in the best way possible?
Are there, and this is for the whole group, but I mean, are there other uses that we can also use pickleball and tennis ball courts? I don't know if anybody know like what communities do, like when they're not playing pickleball or tennis? I don't know if,
Depends on the surface.
yeah. I guess, yeah, I'm just wondering, you know, does anybody know? I mean,
Well, most of the tennis courts and pickleball courts that I travel to are dedicated,
Just dedicated.
for that particular sport.
yeah. Oh, I guess the other question is there a detriment to multi-use?
As I said,
You know?
it depends on the surface.
Yeah, yeah, I just wondered, you know,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking like, okay, if we have this can be used for this as well, if it ends at 11 or something, I don't know, but also if you're using it for this, you know, it's like having dance class on a basketball court, it scuffs it up, you don't want to have that, you know, so I'm just wondering, as we're like spending this money, you know, just how can we make this, because there's a definite need for this. I'm just wondering, so.
Don, one real quick question. When we go to option 3, we've downsized even further. Now we're down to 2 tennis courts and 3 pickleball courts as opposed to 4. Is there a reason for that?
We started to get into the basketball courts, so we looked to not do them. You could probably shoehorn it in, but I don't think that it got close enough that we started to go into it. Just to follow up on one of Greg's earlier comments, I mean, the site plan you guys are looking at is a to-scale plan, and the courts are laid out based upon the guidelines that were provided in the very first iteration of this. You know, so everything is sized to scale based upon the American Tennis Association, Pickleball Association. So, you know, it's pretty reliable stuff. Now, it's not every piece of asphalt has been surveyed. You know, so there would be another step to this if we said this is what we're going to do. You know, we do some verification to it to make sure in the field, just because of distortion in the cameras that are used for this kind of surveying information. But I mean, it's reliable within a couple percent easily.
Okay.
So I think we're definitely within what these are going to take to fit in there.
Other discussion?
So Monday, what do I tell council?
Postpone, that's what I'm thinking. I mean,
That you're further studying?
yeah,
Yes.
I don't see a
I'd like to see
decision right now.
further discussion.
But I'd like to maybe decide what we want to do like now, so it's not kicked down the road. I mean, do we have the availability to get together? I know Catherine, what's your, next week or something like that, and have like a shorter discussion, I guess. And I guess if we're not doing, because I kind of like option 3 just from what you're saying. I think I see making that space more attractive. To even, I don't know, if you want to do a concert there, you've got, a space that's rainproof, if that makes sense, or something like that. But I haven't heard, from the community. I don't know, is that what the pickleball community wants? I've heard they want more courts. That's all I've heard. I've received, I think, 3 or 4 emails, saying that we love the sport, we want more things, and so that's, I think, why we're having this discussion. But I haven't heard where or what. So,
Because one of the things you need to look at that we've, as a city, committed to is equity. Mm-hmm. And right now, unless you pay, you don't play.
what do you mean? It's like,
When you and I grew up, or when you grew up, when I was playing basketball with your dad, we
Grover
could go to
Center.
Grover Center and
Yeah.
play for free. There's not an indoor place in this county you can go play for free today.
yeah.
And when it comes to pickleball courts, unless you can get on the makeshift ones we're running down on the old tennis courts, there's not a place in this city that you can play for
Sure.
free.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about equity. This is addressing that.
Yeah. Well, I guess, do we feel comfortable? I'd like to hear from the group, at these drawings. I mean, I feel like I'm talking a lot to Catherine and Don, but, we're a committee.
Well, like I said, I'd like to discuss it further. I don't accept either of these 3 options. My option is the original option of 3 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts at that location. And if Third Sun Solar wants to eat that land up and not have those there, that's up for discussion too, or maybe we're not allowed to even go there now because they want more property. If that's the case, and then it really creates a new discussion as to where these need to go,
Gotcha.
or possibly could go.
That's the 385 price, right? Or 370, 375? And that's current today as cost of whatever materials and stuff like that. Yeah, okay. That personally to me, I feel like that eats up a lot and keeps us from doing a lot of the stuff that's, on this. We have a lot. I feel like we have a lot of projects coming down the line. That's my feeling on that, I guess. I don't know.
Which is a good thing.
And we need to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, I wish I could just win the lottery and then pay for all this, but I mean,
Yeah, we all do.
I'll just weigh in. I think they're all interesting. I do like the historic factor of the old runway, and it makes sense. and it seems to be the one that's actually in the price range that was what was discussed. My fear about that would be the hockey enclosure, losing that, because I don't know how many people, but I do know people that have used it or use it. So, as you mentioned, the other tennis courts, if that's a possibility, I could see that solving that problem, because I think it's great to have these new options, but also, at the expense of others. That's where I'd be hesitant.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely the perspective that we should all carry, is if you do something, what is being impacted and how, with every decision. And that's definitely one where, I've had some fun ideas and conversations about ways and gone down the Google rabbit hole of ways to repurpose a tennis court. And we have a huge skate community here, but we have a bowl kind of skate park. But what about something that is flat, because there are folks who come in and practice inline skating in the hockey rink. There's folks who do the dog thing, but and then the kids run around. And so I think that the old current tennis courts, they're of value to us, and that would be really important to figure out the best way, because sometimes you just need a safe paved place, that's not a parking lot, because you don't have to worry about cars. I know we relied heavily on parking lots whenever they were empty in the height of the pandemic to teach our kids how to ride bikes, and then we would have play dates there, because that's where we could be outside and there weren't any students on campus, so we had all this parking lot space. So I think having that safe asphalt, safe-ish, that doesn't have giant cracks in it, could be of value in some way, in many ways, to our community. So I think that's, I just wanted to piggyback on the opportunity we have with the current tennis courts once they completely go out of commission.
Is there any way to incorporate what that cost would be for the moving of the, so to speak, moving the hockey enclosure to the old, what are the courts now?
So what would it be to fix the existing courts, not up to tennis court standard, because we know that is
right, but to replace, if it could be of the same standard that it is now. That way it could all happen at that. It seems like it would make sense to just do it all. Yeah. And if it would fall into the range.
That's a great question.
It's a tough question.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know what it would take.
The problem with those courts, as we discussed earlier, is that the floods have kind of washed them out from a subgrade issue. So it'd be prohibitively expensive to try and fix that particular problem. Yeah. You could put a decent Band-Aid on it and mill out the cracks that are there, and then put some kind of infill that would match them, so you'd actually kind of ramp up and ramp down from those. It'd really be the only way, because otherwise it would all get torn out.
Well, I guess that's the whole reason why you're trying to take that spot. Yeah.
It's a hard fix.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I guess at the same time, I feel like we need to have some more discussion about this. We only have 30 minutes left. Maybe we can email each other and get together, and then Catherine, could you incorporate some of the ideas you have for that, like what you were talking about with Dan, just to see, so we kind of have a full picture of what is happening in this whole space, so we can, and then people are listening, if you have ideas, let us know. Because, we're talking about pickleball and tennis courts, but we're really talking about that whole space, and then people will talk about green space and everything like that. Just so if we're picking one of these, we can be like, okay, if this is going to be the case, we would have this, and this would be available. I don't know how much time you would need for that, but, I do think, if we can't, if Greg's great and we can't get out for 2023, getting this done as soon as possible, so whatever that slotting is, because it does seem like the cost of everything is going up, so the sooner we can get on whatever that list is. I don't know what the group thinks about that.
Are you going to set a date for that meeting?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. If that's what we want to do, that's
Well, I think we could have it at one of our regular meetings, like I said, we have plenty of time. I feel we have plenty of time. So when you have a new business agenda and there's only 3 things, that's the time to throw it in there.
Okay.
So I don't think we have to make a special date to have that discussion. I feel that we can have that discussion anytime within the next 6, 7 months.
Okay.
So when you have a very short list, add that to it, and I think we'd have plenty of time that evening to discuss that.
Is this
And
something
we
that
will
you all
have
can
gathered
vote
more
on?
information by that time, so.
I would say that the construction industry is a curious thing right now. I just opened bids for a renovation of Gammersfelder Hall over at OU. And the high bid was $12 million and the low bid was 8.4. Huge spring, right? Nothing to be accounted for. You know, one contractor said they didn't really want the job, one contractor said they did. We had 6 bidders, and we would have been able to accept 5 of them. So I think that the tale that contractors are too busy and that the market can't support it and things cost too much, I don't think are actually the case. It's more dynamic than that, and it's less simple than that. Depends on the time of year. It depends upon the specifics of the material that we're purchasing. Asphalt is tied to oil, and oil goes up and down. Last I heard, it was below $100 a barrel. It was 125, it goes down. So it's a commodity-based market, particularly that part of it. So trying to time that and trying to delay it is I don't know, there's some crystal ball to that, but from my experience in doing bidding in this environment, you really can't game it. You know, I think you make your decision and you go out at the time, and if it comes back that the market's prohibitive to it, then you say, we can't do it right now. But I haven't found that to be the case. In the last 6 months, I've seen better bids than I have in a long time. So,
Even on bids as small as this? Because an $8.5 million project and a 200 and
right, we had a lot for
different night
that,
and
but
day.
you know, I'll say as part of that project, I had asphalt, I had subgrade work, I had gravel, I had piping, a lot of things that are earthwork based. I had 4 or 5 good bid numbers from that. And, you know, a couple of them were local guys. I mean, we had York in there, we had somebody else in there too. That was from around town. A couple of people from out of town. So I think, you know, it's not, and that was not $8 million worth of stuff. That was, you know, 250,000. So I think it's too complicated to say wait because of that factor. I think it's just, you know, you really need to let the purpose drive it and then see what the market says at that point in time. Because it's very dynamic. It's very dynamic.
Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I also heard him say was by delaying it to 2023, we can pull some money from the 2022 fund as well as the 2023 fund, so it's not all coming out of one fund, and therefore might be able to get more money.
Or if you, the opposite of, you know, perspective is that once that money is set aside for the project, then it's set aside for that. And
But
it's earmarked specifically for it.
But you can always come
And
back and ask
so
council for more.
You can always come back and ask council for more. And if the money is not earmarked, there is, you know, the other day, I unexpectedly had to go ahead and earmark, if you will, money that had already been appropriated, so it doesn't have to go through council, but specifically for pool painting, that was significantly more because of the price of paint, for instance. So there are all these things that will pop up. And so if that money isn't specifically earmarked and set aside and appropriated for this specific project, then it might not be there in 2023. You know, I mean, I do not have a crystal ball. I don't, you know, ideally it would, because there was some cushion. There is some cushion in the levy fund from years, you know, years carrying over. But it's quickly, it can quickly deplete based on things that come up. So, you know, like for instance, we have to replace the community center roof, which is something we're trying to get done. We have the expired levy money that we can put towards it, which takes us very far, which is good. But we also have to take money out of the current one as well. So, you know, there are a lot of things that I can't even anticipate, but I can think of, this could happen, so it's really important to have. So basically, I'm saying that, from my perspective, if you get it set aside for it, it's set aside for it. And I don't know what the expiration time is on that. Kathy, I will ask you if you jump in, if for instance, we had the money set aside and approved, what does that look like if we haven't actually paid out by the end of 2022? I don't know.
Yeah, the mayor knows this really.
Okay, yeah, right, sorry.
It would become a project, and projects we can carry over. Otherwise appropriations die at the end of the year. So if you encumber it on a purchase order, you do have to start something in the project. You can't just write a purchase order and encumber all that money and do nothing. You have to spend some of it at least that first year, and usually that would probably be the engineering and design or something.
Your detailed
Thank you.
engineering.
Yeah.
Great, yeah.
So you would have to start it, but you don't have to finish it that year. As a
Yeah.
project, it would carry over.
Thank you for that, Ben. Yeah.
You know,
So that's
I have
just
a comment and that is something to be mindful of. Catherine was kind of hinting at this, and that's the fact that there are a lot of projects going on in the city, to include tennis and pickleball. But, we are 6 years into the levy. And that said, with the remaining 14 years, give or take, we're going to see somewhere between $4 and $5 million left coming in. The reason I say 4 to 5 is because it's income tax based, and income tax is going down, unfortunately, because of some of the interesting issues coming out of the State House and the way they deem things. So, keep that in mind as well. So many projects. And as Catherine Ann mentioned, a lot of times it's emergency projects. They're not projects, it's just emergency things to where, you just mentioned the paint. I mean, the cost of paint. You used to have paint, Sherwin-Williams, there was a surcharge for, well, now they've just fed that right into the base price, and, paint prices have gone up by 12%. Those unforeseen. So as Dawn was just mentioning, asphalt, we see this every year with just street repaving, that so much of what we can get done either expands or shrinks based upon the price of oil, because that's what drives the asphalt plant prices. They will fluctuate.
And there are grants, obviously, that we can go for any project. I'm personally constrained right now with pool season and everything, but the reason I bring this in is because you have to have the money, you have to match, you have to say this is what we have. You also have to be ready to write the check, so to speak, if you don't get that funding. So this could be really valuable to be able to say, well, we as a city are willing to put forth X because it's already secured. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying that unless it was already there. And then that could, I think there's a lot of advantages to keeping this rolling.
And you're thinking,
keeping it moving.
you're thinking option 3, right? That's what you're saying? You're thinking option 3, is that what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, but just in general, keeping the process rolling. So, for instance, I would suggest that if you all took a vote to determine whether to wait an entire month before picking this up or meeting in the interim. But that's just my suggestion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my initial thought was still meeting before, just to get because I foresee, like I said, I've received a number of emails about, the need for more pickleball, and so we've discussed this a number of times. I just wonder, I guess if we can take a vote. I guess I put a motion forward to meet before the next meeting to have this discussion about these options, so.
I second.
Second, okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay.
You have a date?
That I would like to do via email after this meeting. We have 20 minutes. I'd like to spend some time instead of doing that. Is it that everyone's okay with that?
Be careful.
What's that?
Because you are a public body.
Okay. I mean, I publish it, sorry. Hello, Facebook, we'll publish it.
Yeah.
So everyone knows, yeah.
You wanna
Yeah, I appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah, I'll publish that. I guess, Catherine Ann, once you have that, if we could put that on the website or something like that, if they want discussion. And I guess, I didn't ask if we're Facebook Live, are there questions or anything? I don't know how this works. Are there people, or, okay.
I think it's more so for people to be able to tune in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember the old school days in 2020 when people would talk to me back and forth as a way to okay. Yeah, I mean, possibly even the next week or something like that. But I do want to talk about some of these things while we are here because this will also affect this. Okay. Any other discussion about that? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, advisory board ordinance discussion. So I put this on here. I heard there was discussion. I talked with Councilman McCary as well. Heard there was discussion about changing the name and the. I mean, even you look at me putting this. I have board, we're a committee. It's it's like I've heard there's a discussion about aligning everything, and I guess I just want to have that discussion. I didn't know if the board was, or excuse me, the committee, was aware of that. But I think there's been a lot of confusion of who we are and what our role is and things like that. So I heard there were some things happening at the council level. So I don't know, Councilman Swank, if you know anything about that or.
All I know is that in an effort to cast a wider net for board members, I brought forth an ordinance changing one word. And the word that would change is township to county.
Okay.
As it is now, on this board, you can have two people on the board who are residents of Athens County, of Athens Township, who do not live in the city. The other 5 have to live in the city. So you think about this for a moment. If you live in the Plains and live in Athens Township, you can be on this board. You live in the Plains, but you live in Dover Township, you can't be on this board. So by changing that one word from Athens Township to Athens County, because if you look at the membership rolls down there, I'm sure you can see people that, we have members from all over the county, just an effort to broaden the possibilities. That has made its way through first reading at council.
Okay.
Last Monday before that, I got a call from Micah wanting to add the words arts into parks and recreation.
Okay.
In the ordinance, there's 6 places where that would need to be done.
Okay.
I said, okay, I'll bring that up too. Well, when I brought that up, then a discussion ensued, and I have no idea where the original suggestion came from or what people were implying. So it kind of went off into ghost land. So
Okay.
that is what I brought forward.
Okay.
That's what transpired. The mayor was here. It was a week ago Monday, not the committee meeting.
Okay.
And there was a little discussion, but I'm not.
So change it.
I can't. Nothing I brought forward. Nothing I suggested.
Township to Athens County.
Although I will say this, and Travis, you and Brandon can attest to this. In the last 18 months, this board, in my opinion, when I was a member, had made a concerted effort to expand the arts component. Even the point on our previous agendas, we listed an art section, a park section, and a recreation section. And I'm glad that you guys are continuing that. So that kind of caught me by surprise that there was some issue that maybe we're usurping some power or trying to put somebody out of business.
I guess I put this on here because I heard that discussion in the words, and because we had a discussion in November that was really positive of because if you look us up on, it's like the recreation board, and that says a certain thing, and we all know, most of us know that we're not that, but also like trying to get all that figured out. But I was thinking if there are things changing, making sure that this committee is doing what the mayor wants, what the city wants, so we're in line with that, and that the duties are, because then that's something which is the next item, purpose of the advisory committee board. But I just wanted to open that up if that was something, if there was input or something, because this was chartered when was this group chartered? Back in, I don't know, many years ago, and I even have my old thing that says Recreation Advisory Board, and so it's codified in certain places, and I feel like that gets confusing for a lot of people. And so if we could blast all that out, so it says arts, park, and recreation committee. I think also because, we're not a board, we're a committee. Advisory committee, we advise the mayor on these issues, and a lot of times people think, oh, we're passing ordinances. No, we're advising the mayor. We're appointed by the mayor. A lot of people don't think understand that. So I guess it's just my plea to maybe if, council's involved in some other things, maybe we could look at that and then make sure that's in line. So when we're all dust and everything like that, it's still consistent, because it seems like it changes with different people, and some people remember the old days and whatnot. So, and I don't know what that process looks like. Changing ordinances is difficult. I don't know if it needs to be like, but I get emails a lot of times that just say RAB, Recreation Advisory Board, and I'm like, and it's like, I feel like we've caught them all, but then it comes from another place, and we're only looking at it once a year. So I just didn't know if anybody else had a similar feeling or thoughts about that, but I feel like it sends a certain message when it's, even for potential members, if you think you're joining a recreation advisory board and you're an arts person or a parks, person, you wouldn't think this is a space for you necessarily, when we represent so many spaces in the city.
So is that a council decision that needs to be made then to change the name, or is it?
I don't know.
up to us
I mean,
to change?
it's the council. Then I was even looking at some of the things like, oh my gosh, it was in one of it. It was like duties, and at one point it was hiring and firing, but also I've heard that that's not what we do, And so like, for me, I just want to know for sure. I think it was, one of those commissions or something. Like it was like an ordinance added to.
So, to your point, there's some language in there that needs cleaned up.
Yeah, very much so.
And Mr. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that the impetus for that cleaning up that language would come from the City Safety Services Committee in consultation with the administration. Because in some places it says this board advises the administration, some places it says advises the mayor. Nowhere in there does it say that that you advise the director. Yeah, I mean, nowhere in there. And you're absolutely right. It is an advisory board. It is not a decision-making board. That's an administrative function. So I think it would come out of that committee. Now, to that point, in reviewing those documents, if this advisory board thinks that that is something that needs cleaned up, modified, addressed, that would certainly help that committee of council and help them in their discussions and give some guidance.
Okay.
If that's something you believe needs to be done.
Yeah, I personally just feel like this is just an opportunity. We have a new director, so it's like an opportunity to make sure we're reviewing this, talking with the mayor as well, make sure, is this working? Is this what we want? And then, just reach out maybe the community a little bit and then take it to council so it fits. Because I feel like we've had some of these discussions, but like, we have big projects that take precedence. We've been trying to do this for a while, and this might be an just hearing it have made it to council for the name change was helpful. I was like, okay, maybe we can connect a few more things and have that revision go through, just so it's clean everywhere. Because I feel like it gets to most of the places, but not always. And then we're a big machine, so. And so I guess, would anybody like to be part of that committee? That discussion. I feel like maybe we need to. Would you be part of that, Alan, or is that?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take it. I'm
Okay.
on that committee. Micah is the
Or I guess
chair.
if you could have him reach out to us and see how.
Mike is the chair of that committee. Yeah, let's defer to
okay.
the chair of that committee. And one thing that this makes this difficult is the wrong word, but confuses the issue, is that we have an arts facility called Arts West, but it falls under your purview. And so we have arts in the recreation department. And the employees over there report to Catherine Ann. So that kind of confuses things a little bit. It's a city recreation facility primarily devoted to the arts, and a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice we have that. So yeah, I will pass it on to Mike, and you two can go from there.
I think that would be, and if people have thoughts, I think this would be helpful just to, I don't know, that would be helpful, I feel like, so. Any other discussion on that? Sorry. Purpose Advisory Board, I wanted to defer to you, Catherine, and you've put a few things on our, the updates and stuff, but I didn't know, if you had anything you want to bring up right now, about what you'd like from us, because I know, like thank you, I guess, I just want to highlight the updates you do, because they're amazing, because it's, I can see everything going on, and even when we don't always get to go through the whole thing, it's like, there's touch points and all that, but I just didn't know if you and I have had some discussions, and we talked about trying to bring that to the space, but, I didn't know if you want to have the floor for that. So.
Sure. One of the cool things about, being in this position for, a little bit of time now, is that I have learned more about the history, and I get to learn really cool history of our department, also the city, and I see plaques of, this was a Recreation Advisory Board project, right? So the community center was a Recreation Advisory Board project. The city pool was one. And so whenever I think of that, those are really big efforts that took a lot of community engagement, and I have no doubt it took a lot of commitment from the board members at those times. I met one, and I forget his name right now off the top of my head, who actually was a part of the board whenever with getting the community center built, and that was really cool to meet him. In my early days, it seems like so long ago, but. So for me, thinking of what an advisory board is and does and can be is really, people come to me and I try to invite them to, meet with me whenever they have things that they want to talk about, like community, citizens. But having an advisory board is really that chance of being able to reach more citizens, because each of you have people that and then they can branch off from there, and you can branch off from there. So whenever one of the most pressing things I feel like that needs to happen, which kind of makes these project planning discussions difficult, is that we don't have a current master plan. So we have the city's comprehensive plan, and that is a comprehensive plan. So we're in there, but it's not those details of what exactly is it that we need to work towards for the next 5 years, for amenities that we need, programs that we need. What are the things that the community in 2022 now, what is it that these people need? The last one that was put out was in 2014, and so some of those projects, like the need for new tennis courts, was called for back then. And so that's one of the reasons why it was important to go ahead and pick that up and try to move that forward. But what I see as, at least in the short term, which is definitely still multi-year, so it's not short as in just a few months, but short term, what I could use, and really our department could use and our community could use, is a board that could assist with that effort of planning for the city, planning for our amenities that we would like to see, reaching out to the community, really, and then we come up with a master plan that's a 5-year plan and also a 10-year plan, so that we can have these clear goals, because my goals might be a little bit different than your goals, and they're going to be different than someone's goals living on Elm Street. They're going to be, everything's going to be different. So how do we have public meetings where we can engage the community? How do we identify, what is it that neighborhoods need? We can use, best practices, and, what is it important to have in our community so that we have that vitality and that well-being. That is the coolest thing that I get to do with my job, is to work towards that. And so for me, thinking about ways to kind of increase our capacity, improve what it is that we're doing, reach out to the community, be a part of that planning process. That's what I see, at least in the short term which is still 2 to 3 years. So really helping with those bigger, because when we think about who we're serving, it's a lot of different people. And there are a lot of boards and committees that the city has, which is really cool. So then how does this board work with another board and another board to make sure that we're aligned and we have this, I don't even want to say it, but we have the synergy, and because I think we can, because there's a lot of people in this city and surrounding communities that really, really want to, they love this area. I love this area. We love this area. We just need the ability, and they need the ability to be involved. And so I think that's kind of where I see the board.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I got swung out over your shirt.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if there were any board members that could go first. But this actually kind of goes back to right before Catherine Ann just spoke, is as you are looking at what your duties are and where you want to go, I recommend that you read, well, and this is coming from someone who was on the Rec Advisory Board back in 2001. I was then on council in 2002 and 3, and was on the committee for the formation of the Municipal Arts Commission while I was on council. And now I'm, for those who don't know, I'm the city auditor and have been for 18 years. So I have a long history with my 3 children with Parks and Rec also. So I recommend that you go in and look at the Athens City Code, and it's on the website, and read what it says about your purposes. And maybe you guys all got that when you got on the board and you've read all that. There are a few changes, but then I would like you to also read what AMAC is supposed to be responsible for, instead of just expanding what you want to do. I think you should look at what they do first. That would be my request. I feel there's a need for both commissions, boards, whatever you want to call them. And I would like you to read both of them as you think about expanding and how much you really need to expand. And I think the name of Athens Parks and Recreation came about when we acquired Arts West, that building, and added that. It doesn't mean that you're responsible for everything that's involved in those departments. It's how the board was set up. And yes, council does have to approve any changes. And that happens in an ordinance, and then it's codified in our city code. It's, like I said, it's on the website. You might all know that. So, thank you.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of you, that's, AMAC, they would really like to figure out some way that we could, with you all, and with them, to have some set times where you have joint meetings, and maybe formalize at least that communication, so that there is that communication between the two, and figuring out the best ways that you each can be involved in different things that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, that was a discussion we had last year where, because I definitely agree, like, there's no, AMAC, well, there was a disconnect happening with us where AMAC was, like, creating art, but then we're not talking about the spaces that we have, and then there was like, what if we were just talking together and then they could do the art, and so in Chelsea, the chair was coming to meetings, and that's in your update. So yeah, and then I did want to highlight something while we're here, because this is coming up, that it is the 20th anniversary of AMAC, and then there's some conscience and stuff, and so while we did not get to talk about that today, there might be a way that we can help support that in other ways and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I guess other discussion about that, other thoughts, and yeah, this isn't expanding what we're doing, but more because I guess I can speak for my time on this board. We've kind of moved around to lots of big things and different things, and and yes, the master plans come up, but I don't feel like we've spent much time with that. And I do feel like that's something I spoke with Micah, or excuse me, Councilman McCary, Person McCary about. He's really interested as well as getting us in line with that, because yes, there's a plan, but like the pickleball is not part of that. It exists now. The skate park, and so trying to think about where we are now, because when was the master plan done last?
2014, so
yeah.
Data was collected before that.
So some things have changed and whatnot, so I think that's a great place to start. But I just didn't know there's other things of, just so we're not doing like what we're doing today with a minute left and not finishing the agenda, making sure we are getting to what we need to do. So.
I think it would be powerful if the Rec Advisory Board and AMAC would meet at least semi-annual, if not once a quarter, because, as AMAC is moving forward with Catherine Ann, is they're planning on having, performance art taking place in our city parks throughout this summer, 4 different events, and the crown jewel of this will be the Athens Arts and Music Fest on West Union in between Congress and Court Street, which is a great event. But that's where the connection needs to take place. We've got the art world, AMAC, we have the Parks and Rec, all of you, and where there's touch points when it comes to arts in our public parks and the public spaces, that's where AMAC takes on that responsibility with the rec advisory board, understanding what they would like to do, and also, giving advice on things like location or whatever. But listening to the ordinance and changing the language and so on and so forth, changing the name is one thing, but changing roles is completely different. And AMAC will continue to stay in AMAC's roles. They're doing fantastic things, from all the murals you see around the city to art outside the box to Armory Park. But like I said, I don't see really a specific language change to where there is art oversight within the parks coming from this body. That's coming from AMAC. So the suggestion would be for Brandon, for you to maybe should work with Chelsea and see, look at the calendar and say, you know what, we should have a joint meeting. Really a joint meeting. I mean, I think it would be good for everyone to know what's going on both sides.
And this is a question, will we be doing that giant joint commission meeting? Not to put you on the spot, it's been recorded, but I remember we did that, because I thought that was really positive, where we saw pre-COVID time, I think Alan, you were on the board, right? And we all got
It
together.
was outstanding.
Yeah.
That was one of the best meetings that has happened in a long time. And there were different board members who said the same, saying, why haven't we done this before? So.
Not putting you on the spot. It's being recorded.
We can certainly explore
Okay.
possibly doing something like that in October.
Okay.
You need a long runway to get everyone on board.
Sure.
Do that. And make sure we're truly coming out of
Yeah.
this pandemic.
Yeah, I just remember it being a really very positive. That's where I got a lot of this paperwork and stuff. It was a really positive event where we sat with those listing. We sat with different commissions, and there's a lot of exchanges, and even commissions I didn't know existed. We're like, oh, okay, this is what they do, whatnot. So, okay. Well, I'll table that real quick. Dan, you wanted to talk about the riparian land and Camp Rotan.
Yeah, I see in your update, so no need to talk about that right now. We can do it another time.
Okay.
I just was curious about kind of longer term goals, but yeah, I appreciate your updates, and I did notice that in there. So
Yeah, I will reach out to the folks we've been working with, Athens Soil and Water District and ODNR, and this was really helpful having Don here, so I can ask and see if one of them, who's been a part of that, they're advising on us and they've created a multi-year plan for us. I can see if I can get one of them to come at a meeting coming up, and that might be helpful.
yeah,
Would that be helpful?
I think it's pretty
I thought it was
exciting.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
the possibilities could be. So
Yeah.
and it looks nice. I mean, what I've seen. There's just real quick. Camp Rotan, I just wanted to talk about some of the things that I've noticed there. Mainly it's involves invasive plants. So there's a good bit of garlic mustard, which is pretty prevalent most everywhere. It's easily hand dug out, and I've done quite a bit. Not necessarily all there, but I think my goal is at some point I'd like to have possibility for people to come out like on a Saturday. I know it's happened in the past out in that area, and just I would be willing to be there and show people what it is and how you deal with it. Like, you can't just pull it and throw it on the ground because it'll survive. It's amazing. Like, I read you had to bag it and throw it in the garbage, and I was like, that's crazy.
Wow.
But in dealing with it,
Yeah.
I see why. And then there's a patch of privet that I've kind of started working on, but
Oh, privet's hard.
it's small, and that's more localized typically. So I feel like the garlic mustard would be a good effort. So that's something in my mind, and I just want to bring it up
Yeah.
because I feel like
I love
it
that.
could be easy. It could get people out there that haven't been there. Also, in just talking to people that walk through there, they love it. Didn't realize it was there, and it's kind of a little gem. So it'd be nice to keep making it better, and that's just something. And as I've tried to navigate my place on this board or committee or whatever you want to call it, like I feel like that's an area that I can bring something to the benefit of the city and the area. So
Definitely.
Could we? Okay.
Daniel, I applaud what you've done in Camperton and elsewhere when it comes to invasives. I've seen your work.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it. So I'm recognizing that. I'd also like to mention, if you've not seen the riparian wetlands forest area along the bike path, the individual who's going through and doing all the grubbing and tree removal has completed that job, and you'll notice that they went all the way up to BDT Memorial Memorials building, which has really transformed the view shed for that building unto itself, but certainly for everyone along the bike path, and all of the Bradford pear trees that went all the way up to Walmart, those have all been removed. So it's nothing but native trees in there right now, and it's stunning how it's transformed that space. We've got a lot of work cut out for us in terms of managing that. It'll take us about 3 years to knock out the invasives, because we have to watch them come back up again and go at them, either digging them up or otherwise to control them moving forward. But if you think about this as a board, we have just now created a new recreational space in the city of Athens to where people can actually get in that riparian forest wetlands area and experience it. Catherine Ann's working on this to where we can create some programming with the after-school care and the daycare and get kids into that space and teach them about invasives versus native trees that are good, and we'll get native shrubs planted in there probably 3 years, in 3 years' time. Not going to happen this fall nor the fall after, but year 3, once they've got the invasives controlled, we'll start going in with native shrubs. We'll also do some select planting of other native trees in there, and hopefully we can work and get some informational signage down in that area as well to kind of explain what are good trees and what are bad trees. But think about that for a minute. We have now just built new recreation space in the city of Athens to where, I'm sure there will be people, I see people in there with their dogs often. I'm in there all the time, kind of cutting vines 6 feet up in the air and constantly doing my thing. That's kind of my jam, down there at the zen for me. It's kind of created a real interesting off-leash area too for people. I see people down there with their dogs off leash all the time, walking them through there. So, it has transformed that riverfront to where, it was all overgrown and non-usable space. Well, it was being used, of course, but now it's being used in a very different way. Hopefully that has been transformed along our riverfront. And if you drive along 50 and you look across the river, it's stunning. Thank you for doing that, Catherine.
No.
Within your wheelhouse, but just want to acknowledge that as well.
Yeah.
Could we go back to Daniel's thing, man? And I agree, Mr. Mayor. I'm just waiting to go down there someday and see somebody making a movie down there, because it's a perfect backdrop for something. I don't know what kind of movie, but chainsaws or something. But going back to Daniel's thing there, the city of Ann Arbor, Michigan has had garlic muster pull day for 21 years, and they do it the third Saturday in May. It's only March. We could pull that off this year.
Yeah, I wrote in Kids to Parks Day because I think that's in May, and that would be a really cool. Kids can totally do that too.
Yeah, and with social media and advertising that way, there's no reason we couldn't pull this off in 2 months. It's just a matter of picking the day, get that set, and then let's do the advertising.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But that seems like the time of year,
Great. It's perfect.
because if we miss a year, there's even more.
Yeah. And kids can do it.
Yeah.
I've had several helping me before, so.
So really all you need is what? Bags to put it in, right? And people
Hand
to
trowel.
pick it.
Yeah, hand trowels help, like small shovels.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's mostly hand and bag, so.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Too.
I like that.
I'll volunteer to help.
I would too.
Yeah. Nothing we could use that mustard for. Pizza John couldn't work into his Avalanche pizzas, could he? He works a lot of stuff into his pizzas.
That's great. Any other discussion about those items? Yeah, I think that would be awesome if we could. I was just thinking we would just put it on the website, but I love that day. That sounds like,
Yeah.
I won't be there because I'm not a, person like that, but I'm sure a lot of people in town with it. No, not disparaging. I just do not like messing with like plants and all that
Can you
stuff.
back your
but-
truck up there and play
Yeah.
some music for us? Though?
Yeah. No,
Yes.
I am interested to go down because I have not been down there in a while. I did not know that's been done, so I'm excited. I might actually just drive by there when I go home. But yeah, I think that would be another thing of something coming out of this body. I think that's something we could do very easily and involve a lot of people. So, Catherine Ann, is there anything you wanted to highlight in your updates?
I
that we
will
did?
highlight very briefly. Over there. So we had our first ever spring break day camp, and that was awesome. We had several community groups who came in and assisted in programming. Factory Street came. We had ODNR educational program. We had the Athens Asian American Alliance. They came in to do some STEM programming, and we had I believe it was Petland. They came in with puppies, and so it was great. We had a full 18 out of 18. That was what we could handle, and we kind of are hoping and our intent with more planning, we'll be able to grow and expand that offering in future spring breaks. So that was great. We've also brought back Wee Wigglers, which was really exciting, and for the community, it was something that people had definitely missed. And then we added on Saturday open play days, which have definitely been. There are folks who are coming out to come play. There's a need in these colder, wetter, snowier, icier months to have play space inside, and that's something that we kind of recognize to try out. And it seems like that's something that people are really enjoying and appreciating. So we're doing that with some staff, and so we're partnering with Ohio University Parks and Recreation and Leisure Studies students to come in and volunteer. So that's been great. We have a lot going on at Arts West, which is really exciting. So productions have picked up. This was. They were able to pick up it's been ongoing, but Tantrum Theater, the middle school drama club, has been at Arts West this semester. Prism was able to pick back up, so that's been really exciting. And I'm trying to cut it down into highlights. We were able to get the staffing ordinance approved, so we finally were able to get the full-time program specialist for Parks and Recreation position posted. It had to go through some approval processes since it's a civil service position, so we have that open right now. So please apply, send it to folks who are interested. This is a great organization to work for, and the city of Athens is a great place to work. I will have to say from firsthand experience. We are in a lot of pool preseason prep. And so we're interviewing lifeguards. We are actively working towards getting lifeguard certifications. We do have a lifeguard certification course starting next week. So contact Erin Helms if you are interested in. It's a little late notice, but we're going to work to get some in April as well. So Beacon Schools, and maybe even May. Beacon Schools has been really great to work with to help support that. Let's see, we're hiring lots of seasonal positions. We're getting West State Street Park ready. So we're trying something new this year. We're working with the Athens Sandlot Baseball and Softball League, and we worked out, how we could share that space with our soccer programming, and we've also been able to work out how to share that space with the middle school softball. And so that's going to be an incredibly lively area, which is exciting because we've definitely, over the winter months and a little bit before I came in, have been putting a lot of effort into that space to revitalizing that park. That's, if, go check it out. It looks very different, and it's going to continue improving as well. So we're excited to be having that, given that park some love. And I will have to say, since I mentioned Athens Sandlot, they have been putting in some in-kind labor, materials, and equipment, and also working towards some renovations in that space. So they've already fixed some drainage issues in a couple of the ball fields. They've repaired some backstops, and they have a few more projects that they're working to complete before their season opens. So we're really grateful to have them as a partner, because they've been really great to work with, and they're putting a lot of effort into those parks so that we can focus on other things. So it's an exciting place right now. And I think that hits on the exciting highlights. I could go on, but I was trying to hit on everything. Yeah. Oh, we're gonna have new pieces demoed in the community center in a couple weeks. So there's gonna be a couple. There's gonna be a rope pull, and then a tire. It's a tire trainer of sorts. It's kind of simulator, and so we can demo them for a couple weeks and get feedback. We got a couple new pieces coming in as well, so that's exciting for people who are interested in our fitness facility. And I think that's a highlight because I'm excited about it.
Those tire things are a beast.
Yeah.
I was like, no, thank you. With that, I see a lot of you. Austin, does anybody have any questions for Catherine Ann about any of that stuff?
Do we have somebody on staff who can give the Red Cross swimming certification training, or do we have to go through Joe and his crew at OU?
We have someone that we have contracted out to do
Okay.
the lifeguard. I'm also I'm waiting to get the list of more people to contact from American Red Cross so that we can do that. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of Red Cross trainings in this region, and I've even looked at bigger cities that are farther away, and there's still not, or they have to be posted. So I'm sure they're happening, but the communication, the information isn't happening. And then of course for our community, it's important to kind of bring that here. So we're trying to do that. And I've have a contact with the women's swim team, and so we're hoping to be able to reach out to them, see if they have any way that they can assist us, either through lifeguards or through training. Yeah.
Do I know you was either started one last week
They
or this
start
week?
one this
And then
coming
Joe
week.
said there'll be another one in May.
Oh, great. Okay, that's good to know, because the last time I checked, there was just the March one. So we've been telling people who are applying, apply if you don't have your certification. We pushed them towards OU, and now we're offering one too. And so we're trying to kind of inundate the market, if you will, with opportunities for people to certify. But that's good to know about the
Yeah, that's
main
what he
one.
told me the last time we spoke.
I'll look at it. Yeah. Yeah, it was a month ago or so whenever I looked, so I'm sure.
Okay. I want to ask quickly, can we meet at 5:30 next week to talk about the pickleball? Okay, I was just thinking about that. We've pushed the meetings back. I don't know.
I will not be able to. I'm on the.
Then we'll do the email. Okay, that's okay. I thought I'd ask to put that time out right now if we could do that.
That's a bikeway meeting
Okay.
time. So.
Okay, we'll email
Yeah,
then we'll
that.
post this to the public. We'll do that. So, any other discussion or anything else? Have a motion to adjourn? Okay.
All right, thanks.
Go home and eat Irish.